Snoring? Gasping during sleep? Feeling fatigued? Wake up to Zepbound Tirzepatide, the first and only FDA-approved prescription medicine for moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea, OSA, in adults with obesity. Zepbound is an injectable prescription medicine that may help adults with moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea, OSA, and obesity to improve their OSA. Zepbound should be used with a reduced-calorie diet and increased physical activity. Zepbound is approved as a 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5, or 15 milligram injection. Zepbound contains tirzepatide and should not be used with other tirzepatide-containing products or any GLP-1 receptor agonist medicines. It is not known if Zepbound is safe and effective for use in children. Do not share needles or pens, or reuse needles. Don't take Zepbound if allergic to it, or if you or someone in your family had medullary thyroid cancer or multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Tell your doctor if you get a lump or swelling in your neck. Stop Zepbound and call your doctor if you have severe stomach pain or a serious allergic reaction. Severe side effects may include inflamed pancreas or gallbladder problems. Tell your doctor if you experience vision changes, depression, or suicidal thoughts before scheduled procedures with anesthesia. If you're nursing, pregnant, plan to be, or taking birth control pills. Taking Zepbound with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting, which can cause dehydration and worsen kidney problems. Talk to your doctor. Call 1-800-545-5979 or visit Zepbound.lilly.com. Zepbound and its delivery device base and QuickPen are registered trademarks owned or licensed by Eli Lilly and Company, its subsidiaries or affiliates.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
Parker Graham, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Marcus, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
It's great to have you on the show. You are the founder and CEO of Vestible. So can you tell us a little bit about the company and what you do?
Yeah, so Vestible is an investment platform. I don't know if you've been seeing this. I know it's everywhere in my ecosystem. It seems like sports is the coolest asset class to ever exist, and everyone's trying to invest in it. There's PE firms, family offices, and kind of everything in between. And from a global perspective, there's really no way for the everyday person to really invest in sports. I don't know if you have kids. I do. And I feel like I spend $1,000 every 5 seconds to do anything with them when it comes to sports. Me and my team, we really are trying to build the public markets for sports to allow anyone, not only in the US or in Europe, but really globally, to invest in not just fun fan investing type things, but like actually investing right alongside PE firms and family offices into these sports clubs that we all love so much in our life.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really interesting. You also allow fans to invest in athletes as well as in the sports teams. So can you talk a little bit about the dynamic there?
Yeah, so that's actually how we got started. So I'm actually a former professional athlete. I played football in America and then got into wealth management and got into alternative assets and then got into eventually starting companies. And I always had this thought process. And actually, I was always told by coaches, treat yourself as a business. That was something that was always stuck in my head. And when crypto and NFTs all came out in 2020, I'm sure you remember, hopefully you didn't lose any money in those. But as they came out in 2020 and 2021, I had this idea. It's really cool that these kind of concepts are coming up, but I would love for it to be actually regulated. Like, could we create an actual regulated security that would allow you to invest in athletes as a business? That was the initial concept. And it took me about 2 years to get approved by the federal government to do it. But we did our first athlete offering, or, IPO in public markets kind of speak, which allowed fans and investors to invest in the career of an athlete and basically get paid a portion of what that athlete's contract was paying him. We did that in 2024. It was great. It was awesome. And from a business perspective, it just was really difficult. Working with athletes is very difficult, not in the sense that they're difficult, but it's because they surround themselves with business managers and marketing managers and agents and parents and uncles and all that. And so we basically trying to work with those ecosystems was just really difficult. And during that time frame, we actually had this huge opportunity to work with college athletic departments here in the US. And that kind of is what opened up, my entire mind, to be completely honest with you, of what this platform could actually be and what we could actually allow fans and investors to invest in.
That's great. You mentioned there if I lost any money in NFTs, which I didn't, and crypto. I'm way too passive on those type of investments because I don't know about it. And I'm more of a stocks and bond type of guy, the easy route. I'm a sports guy through and through. So for me to be able to invest in an athlete or a sports team that I like, that's like right down my alley. And I think that there's a lot of me out there who thinks similarly. So did you see that gap in the market when you opened Vestible, that you saw that this is actually something that people crave?
And you know what's so interesting is that definitely I'll kind of use fan capital and retail capital kind of synonymously, right? Just like the individual investor, right? The individual person. To get an investment done with those people has actually been done a lot. It's actually very common in Europe. There's been bonds that have been done in different clubs in soccer. Obviously, Dortmund trades on like the German stock exchange, right? There's these concepts that have been out there, but it's not really worked. I mean, I think, and this is my hunch, I think it's because most capital platforms like myself, they've always focused on just the fan or just private equity or family office or institutional. There's not really a platform where both coalesce together. And that's really where I think our secret sauce is that we're not only building the ability for the individual investor to invest in these properties or invest in these clubs or opportunities, but we're also making it super easy for really wealth management firms and more of that like institutional type capital to get into the same ecosystem. Because until today, you kind of had to know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody to get access, especially to the big deals in the EPL, right? And I think really what we saw was this gap of people want to invest in sports. It's happening everywhere. And really the 99% are kind of locked out of it. And we wanted to really attack that and fix that immediately.
I like that. And you mentioned before also when you were playing that you were treating yourself as a business. And now with NIL has opened it's a whole new ball game in the US. So how has that affected your work?
Oh, massively. It's a huge component of our business. We've really not focused on the individual athletes as much because NIL is paying athletes so much earlier, right? Like think about the fact that when I was playing college, as you can kind of see, I was a big boy back then, right? When I was playing, we couldn't even eat at the state. We couldn't even eat on campus more than 4 times a week. So not 4 meals a day, 4 times a week. And so we would kind of be beholden to filling in the gaps for ourselves. And I weighed 325 pounds. Okay. So like that takes a lot of cash to be able to feed that kind of person on a day-to-day basis. Now these athletes are getting paid $500K to be a backup. Right. And it's changed the way that athletes not only can think about their career, but it also changes their whole entire family. Right. Which is great. It's awesome. There are definitely some downsides. Most fans in America, they really hate that. They really dislike the college and pro is really blending together from a football perspective and a basketball perspective. But I think what it did at the end of the day is it's created a lot of autonomy for athletes. And when you create autonomy for athletes, that then creates a lot of costs for the folks that pay the athletes. And that's really why for us, this college market has just been a huge opportunity for us. Think for a moment, if you're running a business and these businesses are generating hundreds of millions of dollars a year, some of them, and then some of them are only producing 5 million in revenue each year. And then the NCAA or kind of whoever you want to blame for this creates an ability for you to now pay your players $21.5 million a year to be athletes on your campus. Huge problem, huge expense that just hit 300 universities across college sports. And there's no way to fill it. Some schools are lucky in that they have very wealthy donors that can fill that gap. And a lot of schools aren't. And that's where groups like us, private equity, some of these like alternative opportunities have created an ability for these schools to find a lifeline and raise capital internally and really continue to build their business the way that they're supposed to. I feel very, very passionately about this investment capital and why we're different from private equity. But at the end of the day, we're really trying to unite the folks that went to that school, the alumni, the investors that care about that school to give them a fighting chance to go fight and compete against the folks that have all of the money. Because right now, you're seeing college sports really have this tiered structure kind of exist, which you see in like the UK Premier League situation where you have the EPL making $200 million per group. And then you go down to Champions League and it drops off a cliff like to 20 million, right? You're seeing the same thing happen here. So that's why we're really excited and why that was such an impactful thing that happened.
I understand that. And it's interesting what you said, that some people are against it because it's college sports is playing into pro sports. And I'm thinking now when we're doing this interview, we're just a couple of days away from the Olympics. And that was also a talk that Olympic athletes should be non-professional. That was the whole start of it. And now obviously that is not the case. So maybe it's new. People don't really like change. And then after a while, people will warm up a little bit more to the idea of NIL.
Yeah, I always tell this joke when Henry Ford was first making the Model T, everyone hated the Model T. They wanted faster horses, not a car, because they didn't understand what a car could actually provide for them. And I truly feel like a lot of these programs, whether it's a professional team in Europe or one of these universities, it's basically like a person pulled up in front of your campus with a Lamborghini and tells you to get in or your group's going to die, right? It's like, it's that scary of a decision to kind of do these things at the speed they have to do them at. But as you probably know, I mean, the world's just moving so fast. You really can't slow down or you're going to get passed up. I don't envy these people whatsoever. Like I tell them all the time, you're in a very difficult spot. And hopefully we're coming in as a really trusted advisor to help them kind of navigate that next season because it's difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also, it doesn't seem fair now with social media and everything that you can, like you build your personal brand as an athlete, and to be blocked from being able to monetize that doesn't seem fair either.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, think about it like this. And what's funny, sorry, I'm going to go on a sidetrack. Most of these people that are fans are complaining about athletes getting paid or athletes, in the Olympics getting paid and all that. But in reality, if you're an accountant and someone were to tell you, well, your first 4 years as an accountant, because you're a first 4 year of an accountant, you're just going to not get paid. And we're going to give you something in exchange. We're going to give you some books and you're going to learn some things. It's like no one would take that deal. So I'm a firm believer in free enterprise, firm believer in capitalistic market. If they have the ability to get paid for their name, image, and likeness or for something else, there shouldn't be a restriction on that. And just because it's been done that way for the last 100 years is not a good excuse to keep doing it.
Yeah. So Vestible's mission is to let fans actually invest in athletes' career with regulated protections and not just like buy merch and membership. So can you explain this model that you're doing?
I would actually say like our mission is really to give anyone in the world the ability to invest in sports. That's really the mission at this point. Again, athletes were a part of our story, but they're not the full story anymore. And really how we feel about that is, at the end of the day, someone's going to build the New York Stock Exchange for sports. And that's really who we want to be. And that's the group that we want to build it for. And most of our investors are folks that love sports just like you and just like me. And they want to be a part of that growth. For so long, if you look at the NBA, if you look at the NFL, if you look at some of these franchises and the values that they've driven the last 40 years, that value is driven purely from the fans that sit in the stands. That's where that value has been driven. It's from fans' eyeballs watching, from fans participating, from businesses sponsoring, so on and so forth. But none of those people for the last 40 years have gotten any of that upside. We want to unlock the ability for that upside to be given to anyone, not just being held at the ownership level.
And you have mentioned like the EPL and some leagues outside of the US as well. So are you mainly focused on the US or are you also looking in Europe and maybe Asia and other Middle East is coming hard on the sports front as well?
Yeah, I would say our big focuses are Europe and the US. In the US, we are hyper focused on college athletic departments. So think, not the SEC or the Big Ten, but definitely more focused on the middle market there. And then we're looking very, very deeply at the middle market in Europe for soccer. We do have some opportunities that are going to be coming up that are outside of those two ecosystems. But I think our bread and butter are going to be those two groups to initially start. And then hopefully we'll expand to Asia and, as you mentioned, kind of the Middle East in some form or fashion over the next couple of years.
Yeah. So any big challenges or differences between Europe and North America primarily?
That's interesting. I think that assets are so different between the two, right? We have college athletic departments, which are the most risk-averse group. You mentioned you're risk-averse. That's the most risk-averse group you've ever seen in your life. They've been doing business the same way for 100 years and have never had a change. And they're being forced to change right now. Very, very interesting. And then we have our professional clubs in Europe that have been traded. They've been bought, sold, some of them 10 times in the last 20 years. So the hurdles are different in the sense that soccer is just such a global sport that everybody kind of gets it. And then college athletic departments here in the States, they're just so beloved. It's a super easy sell here. From a hurdles perspective, though, it's really about just the red tape. Universities, tax benefited organizations, it's very, very hairy to get things done at those institutions. There's a lot of approvals. There's a lot of red tape, like I mentioned. And so it's really the biggest hurdle is time on that side. On the flip side for Europe, it's definitely not time. It is finding the right partner. There's so many clubs. Some of them have been owned for 100 years by a family. Some of them have been bought and sold and traded so many times the fan base doesn't care about it anymore. There's just so many different partnership opportunities there that we're really trying to find the best operators we possibly can to make a good investment, a sound investment, make sense for them, make sense for the investor. Because at the end of the day, we want to create a marketplace where investors can win. No marketplace will be successful without that. So we're very, very cognizant of quality over quantity for sure.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now we're just into 2026. You have some teams lined up for 2026. You also signed your first athletes pretty recently. First of all, how was that? That was the first athlete IPO, right? So
yeah, we did that in 2024. So it was done. It's done. Yes, we completed that one. back then. And, we may come back to that. We may see some of those folks come to the market in the next couple of years, but we signed our first club that was just announced. That's KSV 1919. They're out of Tier 2 Austria. And then we're actually currently about to close, hopefully, 2 English League One teams. So we've got those kind of coming up. And then we've got, literally anything and everything right now. As you can imagine, with the success and announcement of all the things that we're doing, we've had so much inbound. We're kind of parsing through what good opportunities are and what aren't. But yeah, I think you'll be seeing a lot of our name in the press the next 2 months specifically.
I'm sure. What are the reaction from these teams and clubs and maybe agents and athletes running these teams after you have partnered with them?
Yeah, honestly, it's been amazing. We have leagues wanting to work with us to get more capital to their clubs, which is just, I was not expecting that. That's super exciting. And we have startup leagues here in the States that want to work with us on their fundraisers. I was not expecting to have that much positivity. If you've seen some of the UK clubs specifically, sometimes when they sell to a third-party investor, there's a lot of animosity around that, right? Because it's change and people don't like that. With us, we've seen none of that. It's been very, very positively received. I'm very thankful. Now, obviously, it's our first deal has been announced. We got many deals to come, and we might see that change a little bit, but I'm very hopeful that people recognize, okay, you're going to get a seat at this table. When this investment happens, you're going to get a chance to be a part of it too. It's not just the family from America. It's not just the wealthy private equity firm from Germany, right? You're going to be able to be at that table, on a seat at that table in a way you've really never had access to before.
Yeah. We have mentioned now in Europe, you mentioned mostly soccer clubs or football clubs, as I call them. Are you looking into other sports as well?
Yes. So I think you'll see us, and this will be probably 2027, full transparency. I think you'll see us do some rugby clubs. And I think you'll see us probably get into cricket in some sort of way. And then we are working on some stuff around racing. So you may see some of those transactions come up as well. Ultimately, within 5 years, we hope to have everything, a little bit of everything, and then continue to grow our ecosystem in that way, where we're not just beholden to one sport. But you have to kind of start where you can. And soccer seems to be the biggest pain point we could solve for right now for both the club owners, the fans, and investors alike.
You think you can piggyback off now? Obviously, for the Men's World Cup is coming up in 2026 in the summer, and 2027 is the Female World Cup, the Women's World Cup. So do you think that will work in your favor with the interest for soccer and maybe the teams getting stronger and so forth?
Honestly, what a happenstance thing to have happen, right? We're launching and it's the World Cup year and we're focused on soccer. It's kind of the best of everything. I think so. We're actually headquartered in Kansas City where the World Cup's going to have some games. And I think for sure you're going to see some of that benefit help us a lot. And to an extent, soccer here in the States in and of itself is just now having its real big moment where everyone knows about it. If you had asked me this 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to pull this off because soccer just wasn't as exciting as it is now. There's been a lot of money pumped into it. There's been a lot of fandom pumped into it. And that's for US-based teams and US fans that love European teams as well. And so I think you're going to see that be a huge benefit for us. And we're planning some activations around it as well. So hopefully we'll be making some noise with all the festivities happening here.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said that 5 years ago, this wasn't the case for soccer. When US wants to make something happen or when they want to boost something, then it happens fast and big usually.
Yeah, we have a lot of money. It's people have a lot of disposable income, and sports is the one place right now that you can't script. It just is. And it's always been that way. But I think as a society, we have more scripted and scripted things in our life, whether it's our job or AI or the content we watch on social, the content we watch on Netflix for that matter. So many things are predictable and scripted. Sports isn't like that. And it'll never be like that, which is the best part. And as long as we can create an ecosystem where people can benefit from that, I think we'll be in a great spot. The other side of that is gambling. Like gambling also here in the States, opening that gambling funnel really pushed people into sports that they may not have watched if they wouldn't have had a reason to watch them. And I don't know how much of a gambling fan you are, but when you can go to a sport in the States where there's not as much intellectual capacity, there's so many people that bet on NBA and NFL because everyone understands it. Soccer is a little different. So there was a lot of folks who were able to make money playing in that realm. And that's then bled into more and more fans joining that globally. And so I think we're benefiting from all of those things kind of coalescing at once.
That's a good point. As you said, I think everyone who has bet on a game, any point, like even if you put in just a few dollars, you get so much more invested. And as you said, like if you have started gambling, maybe you checking around, was this sport, was that sport, this is live, and then you get into it. And it has a really strong fan engagement aspect that I think shouldn't be overlooked.
Honestly, I'm hopeful that I've gambled before. I gamble when I go to Vegas, right? I'm not a big sports gambler, but my hope too is that we use some of that gambling mindset to get people into investing. If you think about how many folks gamble and how many folks don't invest, very different return profiles, right? And a big part of what we're trying to push is that gambling is very, very easy. It's very fun, but investing is very smart. It's very long-term focused. And if we can kind of help create that in the world, that's also just a huge thing that we would love to accomplish as a group.
Yeah, that's really interesting to take that change from gambling to investing, because this is what you said. It's where you put your money, but maybe it's more of a long-term strategy instead of this quick reward or
that you just split it. Just if you're gonna do $100, do 50 and 50. Just split it. Just see what happens. You may lose your bet, but you have your investment. If we can just kind of get a little bit of a foothold in that marketplace, we'll be pretty happy.
Yeah. So what do you gamble on? Blackjack?
I'm a blackjack guy. Absolutely. It's funny. Marcus, I grew up in kind of the middle part of the US. And so I grew up around Native American casinos. So just like, not Vegas, but Native American. When I was 18, my friends and I would go to the random casino and play $2 blackjack on a Friday versus going and doing anything else. And now that I'm a grown person and go to like Vegas quite frequently, that's my favorite thing to do. Just play blackjack, have fun with the people that are playing with me, and then hopefully not get too frustrated with how much money I lose while I'm there.
Yeah. No, because you said split the 50, then I was like, okay, with the splitting the cards, then I was like, okay, it's blackjack.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't split tens. That's my rule for everybody. Don't split tens.
Yeah. If the listeners takes anything from this interview, it's that you don't split the tens.
Yeah, don't split tens.
Love that. If we're digging in a little bit to your career, you have already got into it that you were a football player. But if we go even further, like how did you get into sports in the first place, and then through your athletic career and up until where we are now, if you can just share your story?
Yeah, so I played football starting as an 8-year-old. My hometown is basically the moment that you can walk, you got a football in your hand, you're watching football, you're thinking about football. And then when you turn 8, when you start padded practices and start playing tackle football. So I, as an 8-year-old, started that in my little hometown and went from that to getting pretty good when I was in high school. I played basketball as well. So I've always been a sports guy. I was lucky enough to go play collegiately and professionally. And, at the end of the day, I'm 6'7". You can't really tell that on a camera, but I'm a tall person and I have a very, very unique work ethic and a unique amount of pain tolerance. And so when you combine all those things together, it produces a pretty solid athlete. And I just really cared about being good. And so if you look at my career, I was number 1 pick for anything. I was never the guy who was picked to be the All-American or anything, but I just outworked everybody. That's just who I am. It's how I've always been. And that then bled into wealth management. My first clients were sports people. They were coaches, they were athletes, teammates of mine. And so I've just always kind of been in the sports ecosystem at different points in my life. When I left my company to then start my first company, my first tech company, it was the polar opposite. It was banking technology, which is the most unsports, unsexy thing you could possibly think of. But what kept drawing me back was that being an entrepreneur, being a founder is about as close as you can get to being an athlete again, because everything's beholden on your work ethic, your ability to show up every day, your ability to have discipline, your ability to have a lot of pain tolerance. And so ran that company for 7 years, started this company back in 2021. And we're just, that's 2021. That was, 4.5 years ago, was September of 2021. And we're just now finding our trajectory. And so I think sports, it's not an accident that we are where we are because of my background. It's not an accident that we've made it this far because of my background. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing that we're serving the community, we're serving sports, we're serving fans, we're serving investors, which is like the most unique blend of all the things that I love in life kind of put together.
Yeah, that's nice to have that coming together, as you said. And you mentioned you were into tech and also investing. AI is on everyone's lips at the moment. Yeah. Is that something that you use? And is that something that you feel is affecting the work at Vestible?
Oh my gosh, yes. As an entrepreneur, I'm able to be 4 different people now at once because of AI. And honestly, we could have an hour-long podcast about what I do on a daily basis with all the AIs that we use. I'm constantly testing new ones. I'm going back to old ones that I used for a little bit and they sucked. So I moved on, come back to them, they're better. It is a fascinating development that's allowed smaller companies like ours. We can operate like a team of 40 because if we all use AI and all have those different functions for it, it just allows you to be bigger than you actually are, which has been a huge blessing. Probably my favorite tools, obviously ChatGPT is a huge one. Lovable is what our website is coded in. Lovable is an amazing web development tool. If you're a startup founder or thinking about starting a company, use Lovable for your test, your proof case. It'll change your life. Lovable is amazing. I use Claude, and I'm just now getting back into Mana. So there's like 4 or 5 tools that I use on a daily basis that are very, very powerful and have helped us with everything. If I were to start this company 5 years ago, we probably wouldn't have made it because you couldn't grow as fast as you needed to with the tools that you had at that time. It would be impossible. But because we've done what we've done, it's only possible because of AI, which is kind of fun to say out loud sometimes.
Yeah. No, and I mean, as you said before, you have a really strong work ethic, and you're having those experiences from your previous work that you implemented in this one. But you also need to be a little bit lucky. And I mean, if you take like Mark Cuban, he started his company like right before the boom of the internet, and you need to have a little bit of luck as well. And as you said, like you started it like approximately when AI was becoming more, and then you were able to utilize that, and then it was this hockey stick kind of growth that everyone wants.
I appreciate that. We haven't hit that yet. I'm excited. We like the moment that we get our first deals done, I'll feel that way. But I think you're right. I'd rather be lucky than good. That's the quote, right? I'd rather be lucky than good. So I'm a Christian. As a Christian, I feel like I was put in this moment to do what we're doing. So there's a lot of that like internal purpose that I feel, which makes the late nights a whole lot easier. I don't know if I've gone to bed before 2 and less, like 4 days, which is not great. Don't recommend that, but you just do what you got to do. And I think that I would imagine Mark would say the same thing, that your time, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how smart you are, how good of an idea you have. It has to do with how much you're willing to pay for that price to have what others don't. You have to do what others won't. And then on top of that, you'd be very, very lucky and blessed the world falls your way. It really is that sometimes.
Yeah. No, definitely. And drawing from my own experience, as you said, yeah, like this podcast I started during COVID. So that was also because you got more time on your hands, and then you have time to start something else. And now it's just trying to making it work through my other job. So it's, now it's after work. So you're doing that, and then you're editing maybe in the weekends, and you're trying to get some, but getting so much out of it in terms of networking and learn so much and be able to speak to interesting people every week. Yeah, feel blessed also to have this opportunity, for sure.
I was going to say, what a blessing, right? What a blessing. Yeah.
For sure. Any advice for young people who would like to get into the sports industry?
Man, the sports is very hard. Sports is very, very hard. It is a small world. People think that sports is so massive. You can count on one hand probably the teams that you want to work for, the places you want to be at in sports at the end of the day. Everybody's vying for the same jobs and everyone wants to be in the sports. It's a very competitive marketplace. The easiest thing that I can say, and it's also the hardest one, is be undeniable. And what I mean by being undeniable, so I tell my team every day, it's like if you want a raise, if you want a job here, if you want a raise here, be undeniable. Make it super easy for me to say yes. Because the difficult conversations are when you're not undeniable and I've got to break that news to you that you really don't deserve what you're asking. And so how does that actively look in practice? Well, for the 50 people that reach out to me on LinkedIn about, oh my gosh, I want to work for Vestible, I'll do anything. That's the worst thing you can say to somebody like me, because if you'll do anything, you can't do anything, right? The best way to hit somebody like me is, hey, I'm an expert in this thing and I recognize that you need it because you don't have it. And here's what I can do for you. Can I help? That's a totally different conversation. And that's somebody with undeniable, obviously with to verify the talent, right? But it's undeniable that you can accomplish something. Most folks that get into sports, they start at the very bottom of the totem pole, doing ticket sales, doing game day events, doing whatever the scenario is. And what I'll tell you is that the people that make it in sports are the people that make that job their obsession and are the best at it. That's what makes it undeniable for you to go from the ticket sales office to managing game day to getting on the GM staff, to getting into scouting, to becoming the GM, to then becoming the whatever your eventual avenue that you want to hit. Being the undeniable best at it at every level of that totem pole is going to pay you more dividends than anything else you could possibly hope to have. And also, it's going to put you in a place that you can't even see right now. I'm sitting here as the CEO of a tech company, that could be one of the biggest sports tech companies, investment companies in the world. Could be, I don't know. If you'd have told me that when I looked like this guy in that picture, I would not have believed you. There's no way in the world, right? And so all it takes is just being undeniable.
It's funny you say that. I had an interview 2 hours ago here with on the podcast, and he said similar things, and that they had an interview process, and how can you be undeniable? So one guy just steps up, and he had checked out, like, I know that you're working on this project, And here's a deck that I made, and here how I think that we could have handled this project. No. And then you're sticking out from everyone else, and you have, as you said, you're proving you're undeniable, that you're an asset, that you're thinking ahead. And then it's much more difficult for someone like yourself, who is the interviewer, to turn them down.
Absolutely. I mean, think about half the battle in sports is just being different. And this is really probably for any job. When you get into a job, it's so easy to look at what your responsibilities are and just stop there. That is the worst thing you can do if you want to grow fast in an organization. What I have found, this is my own experience, but so don't take it for gospel, but typically the people who are elite have always been elite from that perspective. They've always gone above and beyond. They've always seen the standard as the minimum, not the ceiling, right? I really push anyone that I talk to a lot of young people. We have a lot of people try to reach out for internships. And what I tell them is like, hey, when you get that shot, that standard that they hold you to, that is your floor, not your ceiling. Go above it. Whatever it takes to go above it, go above it. And then let that manager tell you, hey, like, you're doing too much. That's a good sign. If they're telling you, chill out a little bit, you're doing too much, I would much rather do that to someone than have to cattle prod them to go faster. That's just, you never want that.
Yeah.
But I could sit on that topic right there for hours, because I also think that as a society, we've really lost sight of that. We've really lost sight of what hard work can actually do. A lot of people feel entitled. A lot of people feel like they're owed something. And at the end of the day, like, you're not owed anything, like nothing. You can work at a company for 10 years. If you're not living up to the standard that that company needs you to live up to, you're not owed that position. That's not how it works. Life is a meritocracy, not a democracy. And so anybody that gets in my ecosystem that's talking about that kind of stuff, it's like, we talk a lot about those principles. And if you live those principles, I mean, you'll probably agree with me, you stand out. You just do. You clearly stand out.
I couldn't agree more. And one elite habit that I have noticed is to be able to have delayed gratification. And that can go in so many things. Like, for example, if you go to the gym, you go one day, you will not see any difference the day after. But if you do it consistently over time, you will see a difference. And the same thing that you said, to go above and beyond and being entitled. I think some people say that, okay, I'm only paid to do this. And then if they want me to do this plus something else, then you need to pay me more or give me another title. People that you're referring, they are the one that they go above and beyond, and they think that they will reward me later for this extra job that I'm doing now. And that's where I think it's the difference. As you said, like the elite performers, if that's on the pitch or the field or in a business setting, it's the one that they can accept delayed gratification, go above and beyond, and then hope to get reward later.
Yeah, I had a conversation with another so I'm surrounded by a lot of founders and myself and a lot of other CEOs. We talk about this stuff all the time. And one of my favorite ones gave me an example of exactly what you're mentioning. He was talking about how an entry-level employee that he was working with, they were 4 years in the job and they wanted basically just a raise every single year, an incremental raise, if I could talk. And so he was giving it to him, like incremental. But that person was doing the bare minimum. I shouldn't say bare minimum. It was hitting the standard, but it wasn't like wowing you, right? And so like, yeah, you deserve a raise. Absolutely. Same level person, never asked for a raise, always did above and beyond. And that CEO groomed that person to be the manager of that group. And so instead of getting 4 years worth of incremental raises, that person doubled their salary within 4 years. And now was in charge of the person who was asking for all these raises, who always felt entitled. Guess how long that person stayed after that person got promoted?
Not long.
Not long. It was kind of addition by subtraction, right? It's like, okay, we rewarded the employee that was actually cared and actually saw the long-term vision. And by that, people who don't live up to the standard, they vote themselves out. They usually see themselves out because underperformers hate overperformers. They hate it. They hate being around them because it's a mirror. It's like, I see that I'm not doing what this person's doing. And so I'm looking at myself. I don't like what I'm seeing. So I have to complain. And at the end of the day, the best thing that you can do is just be the overperformer. It's really not hard to be the overperformer either. It's just giving a shit more than the average person does, which the average person doesn't give a whole lot of shits. So yeah, sorry if I'm not allowed to cuss, but yeah.
Don't worry about it. And I agree with you again, 100%. And I think it's also, it's so important in that example that you gave that you reward the correct person in this case, because if you reward the person who complains and does the bare minimum, that sends a signal to the whole team that everyone will see that you saw this other guy who busted their ass and worked overtime and did that, and it didn't pay off, and they reward someone else who's doing the bare minimum, then that's going to kill the motivation of so many other people.
Yeah. And also, I would tell you on the flip side, like if you're an employee who does do that and your bosses are taking advantage of you, you also need to leave because unfortunately, those underperformers can become managers. And then you're stuck underperforming manager when you're an overachiever, not a great scenario. And I have so many friends who have stayed in jobs because they care so much, but they're not getting rewarded ever for that overperformance. And they are the undeniable overperformer, right? It's tricky. Unfortunately, there's folks that get burned. There's folks that do try hard for a long time and then get burned. And I totally get it. But I do think that's changing. I think that with how the world is now, it's very hard to be an a-hole, like whether you're an employee or a manager in some form. Like people don't have to work for you. And I think that is a beautiful thing that we do have now in society. Whereas back when our parents were in the workforce, you worked for a company for 20 years and golly, if you left and went to a new company, you were like a redheaded stepchild. You were not invited to the barbecue after that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's some good things there as well.
For sure. If we can go down a rabbit hole here for sure.
Oh yeah.
I know that you say that there are easier today to be an overperformer because you just need to give a shit basically. And
Yeah.
I usually quote Dana White because the president of UFC, he said nowadays you will run all of these kids over if you just give a shit basically. That's not a direct quote, but I think that too, that there are a lot of people who are entitled. There are a lot of people who are not willing to go the extra mile. So if you do that, you will be so far ahead really early.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're a young person, you want to be that overachiever, there's so many unique places you can go to. You can go work for a startup and the value you're able to create and then receive in some of these smaller companies, you can go and be a very, very high achiever and earn a lot of money very quickly, depending upon where you choose. There's so many avenues, especially in sports. I mean, there's startup leagues. There's just all young teams that have been around for a long time. Minor league baseball teams, Australian baseball teams. There's just so many places now where you can get plugged in that if you can get that on your resume and have somebody vouch for you, my goodness, you can create a really beautiful business career for yourself.
For sure. You have done incredible things already, and you said that you didn't want to agree on hockey stick growth yet. Perhaps you're getting there, but in the journey you've had so far, has there been any bumps on the road? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, from a company perspective, we've almost ran out of money 6 or 7 times. Those time frames where you basically you have to turn over every single rock to find something. And it was very interesting. And again, as a Christian, God just showed up for me in ways that I would have never expected, literally out of cash, can't pay the bills, all that. And then boom, $25K check was wired from someone that I haven't talked to in 6 months. Just crazy stuff like that. I got a refund on taxes that I was not expecting. That was $8,000 and $9,000. 2 checks covered us for 4 weeks. It was something crazy. It just was out of nowhere in the mail. No one told us it was coming. It happened right then and there. I've had to furlough employees for months and months and months. And some of those employees worked during that furlough. There's been so many roadblocks and tornadoes that have happened where we've had to change something at the drop of a hat. And again, the company's been around since 2021, September of 21. So we're coming up on 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in September. Yeah. And we're still standing. And the fact that we're still standing is a miracle. And I think why we're here is because we're supposed to be here. That's a very powerful thing for me to have to steward, because every single day I have to wake up and be ready to rock and roll and see what God's got in store for me. And at the end of the day, we're making it. We're not, again, hockey stick, not yet, but we're getting there. And it's very exciting. The other thing is that, we've had employees that have come and gone. And that's always hard for me. As a team-oriented guy, I always want it to be a very close-knit group, right? And sometimes you have people leave and sometimes you have people that go in good ways and in bad ways. And we've had to really turn over the team in the last year and a half. And that's been really difficult. But now we've got people in the boat with us that are going to be here for the next 5 years of the company's history, right? And hopefully beyond that. So I think that every founder goes through this. They go through the roller coaster. One day you're, oh my gosh, we're the smartest people in the world, to, oh my gosh, we're the dumbest people in the world. And that's just within the first 2 hours of the workday, right? But I think at the end of the day, too, even through all those hurdles, all it's done is help us refine. And now we're in the situation where we kind of have earned the right to be where we are. And I think people can recognize that when they talk to us. We're still early, but at this point now, it feels more inevitable than anything.
Yeah. Great story. There are a lot of ups and downs, and you had your faith and believing in yourself and the company. Looking ahead now for the next couple of years, where do you see Vestible going, and when do you expect this hockey stick growth taking off?
Yeah, I think if we are successful in doing our first 6 clients that we have, I think if we're successful in doing those, I'll feel very, very strong. Then I'm going to be worried about the next 60. It's kind of like the best part about being an athlete is you get to celebrate your win for about 4.4 microseconds before you have to worry about the next game, right? And it's a gift and a curse, but I do think that fast forwarding, the next 5 years, my hope is that, we have hundreds of assets on our platform. We have millions of investors that are investing on the platform. And really, we are the Uber of our space. Like that's truly what I have envisioned for us. If we're targeting that, if we're targeting this sports stock exchange, this ecosystem that has never existed, if we're targeting that and we land somewhere in that neighborhood, I think we'll all be pretty happy. So that's the target right now. And that's kind of the vision for we're trying to head in.
That's really exciting. And I will be following Vestible closely for sure and see what's happening
Love it.
in the next couple of months. I'd like to end on a networking question. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this show?
Man, there's a lot. There's a couple of founders that I think that would be really good. Just personally, that's my biggest ecosystem, my biggest space. But there's a lot of athletes and much better athletes than me, full transparency, that are serving sports in a new way. One of them, Kenny. I think Kenny might be a good story. Kenny's basically built this titanium. Honestly, I'm going to butcher it, so forgive me, Kenny, as I'm telling this pitch. Kenny is an NFL player just like me, and he built a glove system that's basically like a titanium shell within the glove. So that way, when you get stepped on or you hit something, your fingers don't break. And if you ask him to show you his fingers, he's got fingers that go this way and fingers that go that way. And he's got a great story to tell. That would probably be the one that I would recommend.
That's awesome. Sounds like a good story from Kenny.
Yes. He's going to have him in football and soccer and just all of the sports that have to do with gloves. It'll be there. And it's a really cool technology. So I think you'll like that.
Sounds cool. Parker, thank you so much for taking the time to join Sports Management Podcast.
Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.
Hey y'all, it's Kelly Clarkson with Wayfair, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. Picture this. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app when you spot it. A brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's room of choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.